Look, guys, I know it's 420, but I think we need something a little harsher for today's climate, you know? Yeah, that's the stuff. I hope my wife never finds my water cooling equipment. I already made that joke on Twitter. Reuse, I think I might have seen somebody else make that joke too, so reusing jokes! Woo! What's going on, people? It's Timmy Joe making videos about custom water-cooled computers that no one's gonna care about because society is crumbling.com. Hope you all are safe out there. And maybe you could just live vicariously through me and my $2,500 computer that I then put $500 to $700-800 worth of water cooling equipment on, and then built it and expected you to be all excited about it. It looks really good though, eh? Did a good job on that montage. I thought that was pretty good, and I'm pretty happy with it. So start it all off. It's the end of last year. I got the Fractal Define R7. Been wanting to do this for a while, in fact, so much so that like months and months before that, G-Skill wanted to send me some Trident Neo 3600 megahertz memory for Ryze, and I was like, I'm gonna be doing a full custom water loop on my computer. I'll add that and I'll include it in the video. So here we are like 6 months later. Thanks, G-Skill, and your Trident C Neo, beautiful RGB memory that works flawlessly on an XMP profile for AMD CPUs. Thanks, G-Skill. We also have some other people involved. Fractal sent me the case, did a review on it. It's like an amazing transforming case that if you want to have a whole bunch of hard drives in it, you want to do this, that, it just does a lot of things. And I thought that looks like a swell case to build a complete custom water-cooled computer in because of the length of it. You'll have lots of room here for pumps and whatnot. And then I wound up getting a really weird pump reservoir combo from Corsair, their new XD3 RGB, which looks like a CPU block. Especially without a context of how big it is on the box. I mean, it looks pretty close. So when I saw that on there, I was like, that's gonna be weird to place in the case. It fits perfectly in there, in like pre-existing holes with one of the brackets that came with this. So they really got their stuff together for how this all, works out. Anyways, so then, I got talking to Corsair, thanks to Andrew from Corsair, my rep, and we did their configurator and did all the custom water-cooled parts that I wanted. We got everything here from Corsair for the most part, including some really nifty fans we'll talk about in a second, but the block is clearly not Corsair, and I did want to have one of their fancy new blocks with the see-through, and you can see the fins, and there's like a flow indicator in there. I really wanted one of those bad, but I didn't want to spend lots of money on a graphics card for this computer. This is my daily driver, Ryzen 3900X, 32 gigs of memory. It's got lots of hard drives in it, like 12 terabytes worth of hard drives, and 2 NVMe drives, 1 terabyte each, one being the Corsair MP600 I got from that MSI video, and it's a Gen 4 one, so lots of awesome fast storage in this, but this isn't meant for gaming. I don't game on this computer. There's a 1070 Ti in here only because I need CUDA acceleration and some streaming coding, H.264, 265 encoding. So I need a decent GPU in there with some decent memory if I want to do some 4K, streaming or video capture or, help with rendering in my video editing program. But to put a 2080 in here or something would be just silly in my opinion. And that was the only blocks they had left, unfortunately. So I almost bit the bullet and bought one, and then like a card so that they could send me a block that would work. And then when it all came down to it, I just said, forget it. I'm going to use a block I had pre-existing from my last water-cooled build, which happened to have a 1070 in it. And that's an alpha cool block in there. And I made it very cool looking. Did I not? I spray painted it. I made it white. It looks like nothing else. And I think it fits the aesthetic of the build very well. And I'm almost happier that there isn't some RGB. There's like lots of RGB going on in here and, water loops and stuff. Having this weird, I think that's the showpiece. It's the centerpiece for the whole build is how I modded this to look really cool up front and center. So thanks to AlphaCool for sending that block to me a long time ago. Thanks to Fractal for sending me the vertical GPU mount as well as another hard drive bay, because you can actually put two bay hard drive bays in the bottom section of this case. I wish maybe I would have got the XL version of this case. At the time they asked me if I wanted it, and I said no because I didn't think I'd want a bigger case in this form factor, but in the end I should have, because it would have given me that extra couple of inches to get a little more visuals on the blocks, and you know, some of the memories half cut off by the fans. But I think it works out, and I liked how it ended up anyways, and the white interior of this fractal case is very, very nice. There's definitely some upgrades I would like to do at some point, or just some minor changes. I'll talk about how the run isn't really run very well, or it's not traditionally how you'd lay out a water cooling loop here. I kind of did it backwards out of convenience for myself, because I didn't want to run the tubes any weirder than they had to be, but at the same time, I'm putting the, usually you put the rad in line with the CPU block, so the freshly cooled water gets to the CPU block first. It's not set up like that right now, but there's also a white panel in the back of the fractal where that pump and reservoir is mounted. That it's like a plastic piece that would make it look really like flush and nice in there. And I didn't want to drill holes in it, so I left it out. But in retrospect, if I ever do dismantle the loop, which I might end up doing because of how it's run, yeah, I would put that back in there and I would drill holes through it so that you have a nice clean white panel in the back where that pump is. Instead of like the holes that are there for the hard drive mounting system for this case. Other than that, it all really went together well. There are a lot of cables to manage. Corsairs IQ software has its ups and its downs. So you know, to control the lighting on this, there's a couple of different things you got to do. We'll get to you know, why I'm not as necessarily satisfied with how I run this, although it looks amazing, and I probably won't change it for a little bit. But essentially, the way I laid all this out, I thought, why don't I just run the loop like this? We got the rad, and it exits into the pump and the reservoir, and then it goes to the CPU block. Then it goes to the GPU block, then it comes back into the rad where the fluid is cooled, and then goes back into the reservoir. In doing this, you risk having water heat up in the reservoir. If the pump's working extra hard, it will transfer heat. You can actually feel it getting kind of warm at higher RPMs, and it will do it'll erase some of that cooling that the rad has done. So traditionally, you would run the pump and reservoir into the rad, then run the rad into the CPU so that it's getting the freshly cooled, you know, fluid, and then maybe you'd run it to another rad so that it gets cooled off again, then into the GPU block. But I didn't really think that would be a big deal here, and it really isn't. It's working. It's very silent. Can you hear it? I can't. Well, you can if you really look, but it's better than my other system for that reason, that is for sure. But I think I could get better temperatures if I swapped the lines around. I also didn't leave myself any way to evacuate the system, which is, I'm dreading ever having to take this apart. I can, there is a plug on the bottom of the reservoir that I could let the fluid out from there, but I could never use the pump to pump the fluid out. And I'll have to do something. I'm sure it'll be a huge pain in the ass to try and change the water in this loop or do any changes to this. So we're going to leave it alone for a little bit because it looks pretty good. It's working pretty good. And I guess we'll get into the performance of it. So the GPU, absolutely no problem. Running Unigen Heaven for like 30 minutes. It got to like 52 degrees overclocked to over 2 gigahertz on the 1070 Ti from EVGA. So GPU performance, even if I was gaming with this thing, it's going to be just fine. Never going to have an issue. This video card, all it does is a little bit of rendering or a little bit of, you know, CUDA acceleration and stuff like that. It's never going to be a problem. And then the CPU, I was using a Deepcool 360mm AIO before, and it was doing a very fine job of keeping this 3900X at 4.3 gigahertz, all core overclock. 4.3 gigahertz, 1.325 volts. And it runs stable as all hell all the time at 4.3 gigahertz like that, which is amazing. I don't know if it's the chip or this MSI Meg Ace motherboard. It's very, very good for overclocking. I love it. And before with the AIO, I remember getting about 75 degrees max on my CPU when I first set that computer up with that AIO. And then I realized it was getting loud lately, especially during renders. That's one of the reasons why I really wanted to swap this computer out. As you saw, there was a lot of dust buildup in the computer. Thermal paste was probably getting a little bit tired. And I was seeing temperatures up into the 80s. So I assumed once I swapped to a really thick rad and a custom loop system, and then I was expecting to see temperatures maybe in the 70s at 4.3 gigahertz under load. But it's more like 75. So we're back to when I first installed the AIO's performance-ish, which wasn't making me happy. Now, there could be a bad mount on the block, and maybe we need to reapply the thermal paste on, this block for it to get better temperatures than I'm seeing. Maybe it's the fact that the water is not getting cool enough in the reservoir before it gets there, and it's just not giving me the cooling I really wanted. I was hoping to see like a 10-degree variance or 5 on a stock AIO with a brand new setup with no dust and no, with brand new thermal paste. It kind of ends up that I'm right where I was with a 360 mil AIO on just the CPU before, but it's running at 75 degrees max on a super load during a render, no problem. And I think that's okay for a 3900X. It's never crashed, and it's never gone over like 76. So I think we should be good. So temperatures are pretty good with this, but any better, I could definitely fine tune some stuff and probably get her down a little bit more. I guess we'll just have to wait for that. So in all, the last thing we'll talk about is these fans, QL120 RGB. These are new from Corsair, and they're, oh my goodness, expensive. And I guess there's a reason, because they look really, really cool. They have addressable RGB on the outside and on the inside, and in the IQ software, you can literally assign a color for every zone of the lighting. So you could customize to your heart's content. There is some presets in here where, it does different things. It drops things. It's like, because you can address anywhere on the fan, it's really cool. But a box of these on newegg.com is $140. And he sent me 2 boxes. So I have $300 USD worth of fans in this computer. And that's going to make a lot of people sick. I mean, there's people out there whose whole motherboard and CPU and RAM don't tally $300. So I kind of get that, this is out of the range of a lot of people, and it's not going to be a very relatable video, but heck, I've been talking for a while here. Hopefully you're still hanging on. All of the stuff was really, really awesome. And I'd say the quality is up there with like EK stuff. It's up there with Alpha Cool stuff. Actually, this is a lot more polished than the Alpha Cool stuff that I've used in the past. It's a lot more streamlined. Their configurator online is really great. You can set up, especially if you're using a Corsair case, you can look and see exactly how your water loop will end up looking, which is very, very cool. And if you're using somebody else's case, you can still configure it and kind of see where things are going to go. And it'll make sure you don't forget things like fittings. And, it automatically put in some 90-degree fittings. Now, I didn't need them. I definitely could have bent my tubes on the pump there, but it was a little added bonus that those ended up coming because of the configurator. Went, you probably need these. This is interesting. So as far as buying all this stuff, pretty hard right now. The only website I really see it working on is performancepcs.com or ppcs.com. They make water cooling, or they're a supplier for water cooling stuff in the States. I found most of this Corsair stuff on there. As far as buying it on Newegg, not a lot on there. Amazon, not a lot on there. So it's getting kind of scarce for this stuff. But I'd recommend it if you're looking into water cooling, especially if you're a newbie, because it was so easy to get going with this stuff, where, and it helped you along. Where if you go other routes, EK is probably fine. Going to be a little bit more expensive than this. If you go other routes, XSPC or something like that, you're not really going to be sure. You're going to have to figure things out on your own. I really liked Corsair's approach of everything kind of working well together, having a configurator online that made this stunning PC possible with the least amount of, foibles and whatever. So I'm at Watch Timmy Joe Instagram and Twitter. I hope you've enjoyed me talking for nearly 20 minutes about my custom water cooling adventure. And I really had a lot of fun building this, and I look forward to, in the next couple weeks, doing a complete budget 1080p build with the parts you can actually physically buy right now, and giving you an update on how long it took me in Canada to get all the stuff that I, bought new and what have you. So there'll be lots of content upcoming on the channel. I'm always, I'm a little bit bogged down right now by childcare and stuff like that, but heck, I got this done, didn't I? I watched Timmy Joe Instagram, Twitter. Tell me what you think about the rig in the comments below. And I hope you guys are being safe out there, and you can live vicariously through me and my crack and heroin addiction, so that we can, you know, make computers on the internet. Ow. Whoops.